All right, on the road with Hoops Adjacent this week. I am in Ashburn, Virginia, because the Washington Commanders are about to announce Adam Peters officially as their GM. So I'm here in front of an empty bookcase in an empty room. Hopefully, nobody will jump in. I hope this wasn't Rivera's office. My man Jay Donde is here. We're going to have Vinny Goodwill here from Yahoo in a minute. And there's a rumor that Marcus might join us. I ain't all that sure. We'll see. Marcus big time in us this week, Jay. But I appreciate you coming on from Northwestern, the dean of the deans at Northwestern. And so we're going to talk about the Bulls, but you wanted to let's talk about first, though, the NBA put this report out finally, because everybody was like, how y'all doing this 180 on load management? And they kept saying, we got data. And we're like, where's the data? And they're like, well. And they finally put it out last week. And they claim that load management does not prevent future injury for star players. And the unsaid thing was, so then you don't need to load management your star players. Now, look, it's an NBA study with NBA doctors and NBA PR people. So you can take it at face value, do whatever you want with it. But I did listen to the call. I was on the call with the league's doctors about it. And, it's a pretty rigorous study, I think. Now, I'm not an expert on that sort of thing, but it looks like they didn't just slap some numbers together. Like they really did try to road test some of this stuff.
And they also had the caveat, though. It said, okay, we found that the study showed that load management does not do anything to prevent injuries, but they also said we're not saying it doesn't not help either.
Right.
And also,
we can't prove either way.
Maybe they addressed this on the call, David, was, okay, I would imagine they could show that it doesn't do anything to prevent like an acute injury. There's two types of injuries. Acute, which is something like, you land badly and you awkwardly, you tear your ACL, something like
You're
that.
You're out for a while.
You roll an ankle. That's an acute injury. A chronic is one that is an accumulation and wear and tear. And that is an ongoing injury. You can't have surgery to repair it.
Right.
This didn't say if it does anything to help or doesn't help.
One thing,
injuries,
they did say this does not cover people returning from injuries. They did say that, so that they know that there's a different ramp up for somebody that's coming back from an injury than there is for somebody that's playing and they're just getting a day off, right? So it is different. There was a lot of caveats attached to the report, so it wasn't. I'll give them credit. They weren't saying this is a definitive study and this subject is now closed. And but what they still, and I asked one of the doctors about this, what I still found kind of odd was for years, Jay, they said the science is clear on this. The science is clear that resting players helps. Like it wasn't ambiguous. It wasn't like this is what we think the science says. It was, no, dog, the science says rest these guys up and they'll be better and they'll last longer and all the good stuff. And now they're just like, the science was wrong.
Well, you mentioned it, like who funds these studies matters, right? So in health and nutrition, we were taught the 4 food groups and the pyramid, all that stuff, right? For growing up, used to see those posters in the school cafeterias, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe not so much.
That was kind of wrong.
It is and add more. It is eat more vegetables, maybe less meat. We were taught for years, fat, avoid fat. We need low fat, this, that, the other.
Right.
Well, who was sponsoring those studies? The sugar growers and sellers. When it turns out, well, you know what the problem was actually sugar more than fat. And we've been told for decades that you got to have low fat. Well, actually, you need fat. You need to cut down on the sugars.
Right. Vinny's here with us now. So you were on the call last week. So we were talking about this. Like, I was just amazed, Vinny. Like, they weren't ambiguous about the science. For 10 years, they were like, nah, dude, the science says rest these guys. And now they're like,
You know what the science was? Media rights deals. That's what the science was. The science is we got to make this money and we got
Right.
to show these media companies that y'all gonna get y'all asses out here and play in
Right.
random January and March games. I mean, that
Right.
pretty much is the birth child of the in-season tournament, is to make games meaningful and to give more incentive for
And
stars to
the play-in
play.
tournament. Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
All of that stuff. So yeah, it's ironic that the science changes once the money gets involved, right? You know what I mean? If there's
So the other thing is, okay, the ethos of, say, the 80s and prior decades, you got to play all 82. There was a lot
Right.
associated with it, and people took a lot of pride in playing 82. But okay, if you play 82 for 10 years versus 70 for 15 years,
Right.
what's a better
What's
return
better?
on
What's
investment
better?
for
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
involved, right? For the
Right. Right.
teams, for owners, for the fans, for the networks. So yeah, LeBron hasn't played 82 games every year. He's also playing at a high level in his
For
late
20
30s
years.
and his 40s,
Yeah.
right?
well, I
Yeah.
mean,
So maybe there's
here's the
some
crazy.
science to that.
Well, here's the science. The science to that is, and you guys are older, so you guys will laugh at me when I say this. The science is, if Magic didn't get HIV, he'd have played well into his 30s because he was
Sure.
a 36-year-old healthy and effective player. If Larry Bird wasn't out here doing jackhammers in his mama's driveway, he probably would have played, later
Yeah, but
into,
Larry's
jacked
back
up
was
his
jacked
back.
up. Larry's
His
back
back
was
was jacked up.
jacked up.
So I don't think that's basketball wear and tear from those days. Michael Jordan retired from basically sheer exhaustion the first
Yeah.
time, exhaustion, scrutiny, all that. But even when he came back, he played 82 games. All 3 of those years did not
Well, they
miss
all
a game.
did. To Jay's point, everybody played 82 back in the day. Darrell
Everybody,
Walker played 82 games. You just did not play. And part of it was financial because you thought they'll bring a dude in here to replace me if I don't play. So everybody played. There was pride associated to it, to be sure, but it was also financial. It was like I got to save my job.
here's the
And
thing that
it's
I'm
different.
curious about, DA and you guys. They practice less than ever.
They don't practice at all.
They don't practice at all.
They don't practice at all now.
The, you have manipulated the schedule so that so you get more time between All-Star Weekend. Remember, All-Star Weekend used to be game
2
on.
days. Yeah.
It used to be literally
Playing
2 days,
Tuesday. Playing Tuesday after
and you're
All-Star
back,
Weekend.
and
Yeah.
you are back.
Yeah.
So with all these, it's almost like everybody has taken advantage of the quote-unquote load management sort of goose, and now the goose is fighting back.
Absolutely.
With the way that
Now
the
the goose is fighting. That's a good way to put it.
the goose is fighting back
fighting
now.
back.
And the science, and my thing is, if the league didn't do the studies on load management, if they allowed the teams to dictate to them that
Mhm.
here's the science, because I don't think we've ever heard anything from league doctors saying that
No.
this is what the science said. It sounds like the league took the word of the individual teams and said, this is what happens. Why didn't the league in 2013? Because I believe that was the first
They said
year.
they had 10 years. This is 10 years of data, they said. 10
Okay.
years.
All right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, you're right. 2016, 2017, 2018. Y'all could have held up a hand and said, yo, your numbers ain't jobbing here with what you're saying.
And they
Yeah,
still try to
so-
give,
the
and they
other
still
thing
try to give
is-
guys an out too.
Yeah.
But we've
right.
also we've had this slow game expansion creep, this subtle backdoor. So the first round of playoffs used to be best of 3. Now
Right,
it's best
right.
of 7. So
Right.
there's a potential extra 4 games there, for 4 to 5 games even added. And now with the play-in tournament and the in-season tournament, think about it, the Lakers and Pacers theoretically could play an 85 game season before they get to the playoffs,
Before the playoffs,
because they
sure.
made the championship of the in-season tournament. And if you
Right.
play 2 playing games, all of a sudden you're up to 85 games, then a best of 7 first round series. So
Right.
like these extra games,
Potentially
especially if you have a
28 more
lengthy
games.
career like
Yeah.
LeBron, think of how
Yeah.
many extra playoff games LeBron played with all those years of best of 7 first rounds compared to, what guys in the 80s when it started off best of 3 and then
Miniseries, yeah.
expanded to best of 5, so like all this stuff adds up. And that's the other thing. I don't know if they addressed, and you guys were on the call, the cumulative effect. So, okay, maybe in one season playing 82 and not sitting out, but
Mhm.
10 years of 82 as
Right,
opposed
right.
to 10 years of 75.
Right.
You can tell me
Well,
that doesn't make that it's like an extra season, right?
they did
Well,
say they did say there was extra. They said there not there aren't enough players over 35 for them to have enough data to be able to make a judgment on players over 35. So that's why they're grandfathered in or out, depending on how you say it, of the player participation policy. Like you can get exceptions for players over 35 because, to your point, they've had more mileage. They have more mileage and they've played more games. So they aren't in that policy. Every team can make exceptions for those guys. So yeah, no, I mean, again, they did not say this is definitive. They gave themselves enough wiggle room. But the inference was clear that they were saying, y'all can play. This isn't going to hurt you to play more games during the regular season, which is convenient.
Of course it is. Of course. Here's the thing for me, because J.A. just brought it up about LeBron, and I asked the question of the doctors on there, and they said they don't have enough information yet. Jay, you're thinking of the back end of the games that LeBron has played in his career. I'm thinking about the front end of players with mileage on their bodies before they even get to the NBA, because they're playing AAU games, and you have all of this.
All doing is playing
more ACLs, more Achilles at younger ages. So you're coming in with this, the health term that you see in all these different discussions, pre-existing conditions, right? You're coming with pre-existing conditions that teams in the league will have to load manage. And secondly, to your point about if you're playing 82 games at 10 years or 70 games at 15 years, the way that the CBA has been structured for older players, if you are in that 30 to 36 range, you can get 35% of the salary cap compared to the rookie scale in your first 4 years, and then that restricted free agency max, which is not a full max unless you like the Rose max. So it's more incentivized for players to hang around longer on the back end, because that's when the money gets really, really, really good, when you're no longer really, really, really good.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. It is.
Thanks,
it is.
Paul.
Right. Reggie Miller too, back in the day. There were guys that really made that over 35 contract more valuable, because they were still playing at a high level, right? So, but let me switch gears real quick, because I wanted to get both of y'all on to discuss the booing last week in Chicago. And I said this to Dave, our producer. I have problems with it on so many levels, but it has to start with the Bulls themselves. Like, what did you think was going to happen? You know what I'm saying? Like what did you think that people who were kind of just presented with an option were going to do with that option, unless you gamed it a little bit and softened the blow, did some kind of way to introduce him earlier, because you know what's going to happen. Now, there's two things can be true at the same time. The Bulls were stupid and fans were a-holes. And there's no excuse. I don't want to hear it from Bulls fans. Oh, Jerry, stop it. Stop it. There's no reason for you to boo a dead man. None.
Especially when his wife is there.
Exactly.
Yeah. What does that prove? And what happened to forgiveness and appreciation? Exactly. And this is like, I mean, you boo because you want to express your anger or your frustration, but it's also a hope that it will prompt changes, right? The same reason you complain to the manager, right? Something will change about the experience. So by registering your displeasure, what's going to change? The bottom line is he won 6 championships as the general manager of the Bulls. And so what good does it do, to say that, okay, you didn't like the way that he did it?
It's performative bullshit.
And so a lot of people say, well, people are still mad that it ended early. They could have won 7 or 8, if he hadn't broken up the team and Reinsdorf hadn't broken up the team. Well, the thing is, this booing predates that. So I went back, I found a story I did in 96 for the Washington Post, Dave, in which the whole lead of the story was, when the Bulls win the next championship, which they were about to, which of course they did, are the fans going to boo Jerry Krause at the parade and at the ceremony? And so this is something that was going on even while they were winning.
Yes.
And, you talk about who to blame. Well, guess what? A lot of the blame has to go with the players and the coaches, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, who were very public about their mockery of
Yes.
Jerry Krause and their willingness to portray him as the villain, even while they're winning championships.
I tell you, as someone who lived in Chicago for a few years, and the specter of Michael Jordan, like the shadow, or he casts a great shadow. He casts a shadow over LeBron James. He casts a shadow over even like someone like Isaiah Thomas. Like if you get on the wrong side of Michael Jordan, suddenly you become an enemy and resent
Enemy of the
it.
state. Enemy of the state.
Yeah, like if Michael Jordan has resentment towards Jerry Krause, okay, cool. That's him. That ain't you.
Yeah,
And
right.
secondly, y'all, this is the thing for me. Maybe it's just this whole Twitter, Instagram world that we live in, where civility, like what happened to just being, not even saying like respectable politics. This ain't the shit I'm talking about, but just civility. Like time is supposed to heal.
Just don't be an asshole to other people. That's all. You don't have to be nice to them. You know what I mean? Like nobody's asking you to give Jerry Krause a standing ovation. Nobody. I'm not suggesting that you do that. But this performative bullshit, I have to boo Jerry Krause because I'm a Bulls fan. What did Jerry Krause do to you besides deliver 6 championships?
6 of
to
them.
your organization, to your
6.
city? You know, like
you ungrateful. That's what I want to say.
You know what I mean? Like, come on, y'all.
What's funny, Vinny brings up the point that the specter of Michael Jordan. You know, I had this thought, and I think Rick Morrissey articulated it really well in the column in the Chicago Times, where he basically said, blame Michael for this. But, you know, the fans wanted to be on Michael's good side. The media wanted to be on Michael's good side. But somehow the fans identified more with Michael than with Jerry Krause, when the fact of the matter is we all are much more like Jerry Krause in terms of athletic ability,
right?
Looks,
but
everything else, stature, height.
This is what,
you know,
this is what I've said in
the average person is more Jerry Krause than Michael Jordan, right?
Who are you going to root for in that fight?
Right,
You know
but like
this
people
was my problem
identified better with Jordan, right?
This was
in part because they wanted to be Jordan. Jordan represents the aspiration. We thought when you could actually, you know, you're more like Krause. You can succeed despite the limitations.
Nobody wants to think of themselves as being short.
Everybody thinks they can be a millionaire if they work really hard. Everybody thinks you can be a millionaire,
right?
Even though there's no chance in hell you can be a millionaire
with incredible athletic ability and pathological competitiveness. Like Mike, you can be Jerry Krause. You can't be Michael Jordan, and yet people thought be like Mike. I said it was the success of the Be Like Mike branding. One of the ways that manifested was people thought they could be like Mike, so I'm going to be Team Mike here instead of Team Krause. And it's kind of funny how we delude ourselves into who we identify with.
It was one of the things I could not stand about that era was that Michael Jordan, who's only the most popular, most charismatic, most famous person in the world at the time, picks a fight with a guy that can't fight back on any level. He can't fight back on any level. He's not as good looking. He's not as famous. He's overweight. He's bad socially. He doesn't trust the media. So there's nobody he can go to in the media to get his side out. And Jordan knew all of that. So this was easy pickings for him. It was like, you know, like nobody brings up Michael won at Walter Davis, you know, and that didn't work out, you know, and so that the things that Krause did, like get Scottie Pippen, like get Horace Grant, like get Bill Cartwright, like get Bill Wennington, like get Luke Longley, and build a championship team around you. Get Dennis Rodman, get Ron Harper, get Steve Kerr, so you could do it again. He gets no credit for because his job was to take shit for Jerry Reinsdorf, who's the guy you really want to boo, but you ain't got the stones to boo him.
You know, if you felt like the Bulls left championships on the table in the 90s, well, you know, Krause didn't retire on the eve of training camp in 1993, coming off the three-peat when they probably would have won another one. And
no, they won't go. Now see, that's where I quibble with both of y'all, or quibble with you, Adonde, because DA didn't say it. We ain't never seen 4 championships in a row. You want to know why? Because it's too goddamn hard to keep playing these games year after year. Go look at that 93 Bulls team. They were on fumes. You don't go down 0-2 to the Knicks, okay? Right? That they went down 0-2 to the superstar inept New York Knicks, whose second best player was 6'1" John Starks. Okay, but they went down 0-2 and they were tough and grinding all that, right? And then in the finals, they dropped 2 of 3 games at the crib. They win every game in Phoenix, but they dropped 2 of those games at the crib. And who knows what happens in the game 7 in Phoenix? I still think Jordan wins, but you get the point. Same thing in 98. That Indiana team was really, really good, but they were not of Bulls caliber. The Utah Jazz team was the Utah Jazz led by the premier choke artist of all time in our history, and Karl Malone. And had that gone to a game 7 with a bad back Scottie Pippen, I don't know if Houdini himself could have pulled that out of the Delta Center. So to sum this up, y'all, Jerry Krause was reviled for breaking up that championship team. He saved Michael Jordan's legacy that we think about today.
Well, and you mentioned that Indiana series. I happened to watch Game 7 of that series.
Oh, that game was in doubt in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But you know who carried them that game? Tony Kukoc. Tony Kukoc, who was Jerry Krause's, obsession.
God. Yes.
He was Jerry Krause's obsession to the detriment and the eternal chagrin of Scottie Pippen and others. But it paid off then. Jerry Krause's signing saved the Bulls season and enabled that three-peat in the Last Dance season to go on. So, if for nothing else than that game, there should be appreciation for Jerry Krause.
Yeah, and there's not. And look, again,
I'm going to get
put
angry
that together.
Bulls fans, y'all realize that, right?
After everything I just said. I don't care. They can tweet at me. I'm on Twitter. Tweet at me. Y'all were cowardly for doing that. Cowardly. Because it's based on nothing. That was 25 years ago. Ain't none of y'all that were in that building, other than the very old people in the front row who bought those tickets. Ain't none of y'all were around when that happened. So you just performative booing because you watched The Last Dance. And you think, well, I'm supposed to boo Krause. You don't know nothing about what happened. And it just annoys me.
I will say, if you go back and look, I highly recommend people, if you want to kind of know where a lot of this came from, read a magazine article in Sports Illustrated called The Sleuth by Rick Tellender, who wrote it.
Good, yes.
One thing you'll marvel at is just, again, the candor of just how disrespectful Michael Jordan is in the quotes. Everyone's on the record, right? It's no anonymous.
Right. Here's the thing. Go ahead, Jake. Finish your
just everyone on the record. I think it started with the Jordan Rules, with Sam Smith's book, which was very anti-Krause, even as it was anti-Jordan. So it wasn't like it took Krause's side over Jordan.
Right. Krause was not the hero of that
went
book.
At both of those guys. But that's where a lot of the Krause stuff was first brought to light, and then The Sleuth was really the definitive portrait of him and what was going on and how the team felt about him, even as they were in the process of winning championships collectively.
Now I know where Jordan's antipathy toward Krause came from. It was the second year when Jordan broke his foot, and he wanted to come back, and Krause reportedly, this is Jordan's version of it, reportedly said, "You are Bulls property and we'll do what we want with you." And from that moment on, he was like, "We're done. You and I are done." Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'm not asking Michael Jordan to love Jerry Krause. He can have whatever opinion he wants to have of Jerry Krause. This is not really about him. It is sort of, but it's not really about him. It's more about people 30 years removed from it thinking they have to act a certain way because they were told to in a documentary. And so when you know that this is a celebration of those teams going into the Ring of Honor for the first time, you could have 5 seconds of reflection and go, you know what, maybe I don't need to boo tonight. Maybe I'll just be quiet, or I'll golf clap. You know what I mean? Like, why do you have to go, I'm going to show y'all, Jerry Krause, we're going to boo you because it make me feel good. To your point, Vin, like, it doesn't even matter if Thelma Krause was there. It would have been nice for you to think, maybe I shouldn't boo him with his widow here. But even if you didn't know that, you could have taken 5 seconds to go, you know what, maybe this is not the right time for me to do this thing that I'm supposed to do because I'm a fan. It just really bothered me.
I'll tell you this, two things. For one, I don't know if you guys know this, but since Joe Dumars left the Pistons, and it was bad at the end, you know what I mean? He and Tom Gores didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. Yeah. He hadn't won a lot. He has not been back in that building since 2014.
Right.
And I don't blame him. They've had bad boy reunions. They've had a reunion of the 2014 that he built. And when you look at what Chicago did with Jerry Krause, I don't know how Detroit would actually react to Joe Dumars walking into, the Pizza Arena.
You think they boo him?
I don't have faith in it. Look, the Detroit Lions won a fucking playoff
that's
game.
crazy.
I don't know what to believe
That
anymore,
is
y'all.
crazy, man.
I don't
They
know.
booed a dude that brought you a chip and got you in 6 straight conference finals.
Yes, I would not be surprised. And secondly, and this is what I've told Bulls fans, and they hate me for saying this. Michael Jordan and Jerry Krause are the only thing separating the Chicago Bulls from being the New York Knicks. And that is not a compliment. Because look at what they've done since, right? What, one conference final in 25 years and the third largest market? And you've had Derrick Rose, you've had Jimmy Butler, you had a cup of coffee with an older Dwayne Wade. Like, they've had some players there, and they haven't been worth a damn in the 25 years since. They should be applauding Jerry Krause because, hey, at least we had somebody. He might not have been quote unquote likable, but he knew how to build a damn good basketball team.
He built a really good.
You know what's interesting, Jenny, is and Dave, you talked about whether or not his widow was there. It still should have mattered, but it did take on extra significance because she had to endure that.
Sure.
But then I was thinking, wow, this is really about feelings, right? Where the story is about somebody felt bad, but then I realized sports are about feelings, right? Why do people invest? Why do fans invest in this? Because the feeling that you get when your team wins is so great and so ecstatic. So yes, feelings matter. So even in this case where the person at the center of it is no longer with us, the memory matters. Why do we immortalize people? Why do we build statues to people? Why do we put their names on buildings, right? To keep the memory alive so that we'll have fond memories of them. So things like that, feelings, memories, those things matter. And just to spin it into a good side, Vinny, I don't know how you guys felt, but man, it felt good to see the Fab Five together again at the Michigan game this weekend.
That was great. I'm glad they did that.
For all the, some of the reasons I'm talking about. It just warmed my heart on this frigid weekend.
I'm glad they figured out a way to do that.
However,
I'm glad.
That you got, like I said on Twitter yesterday, like when Magic and Isaiah made up, like that hit me a certain way.
Yeah.
That was like your uncles. That's like your two older uncles getting it right.
Yeah.
The Fab
Five have both of them at the barbecue. You know why? And the
Fab Five getting together, Chris and Jalen, like Detroit's crown jewels. Those are like your older cousins that you got to choose which older cousin you hanging out with. Like there's been times where Chris and Jalen have been in town, and okay, which one am I going to meet up with or hang out with? Am I going to meet up with Jalen or I'm going to meet up with Chris?
Right.
And you feel like, and I'm not in their inner circles in that way, but you feel something. And now you feel like you have to choose sides.
Yeah.
And that just felt that
like
made
divorced
Detroit choose sides.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad I was so glad I hope it's for real. I hope it's forever because that's bigger than all of y'all. You know what I mean? Like I get the individual beefs. I wasn't there. You can have beef with whoever you want to have beef with, and that's fine. But the Fab Five is bigger than than all of y'all in terms of the impact. It's bigger than all of y'all. You know what I mean?
It's bigger than Nino Brown, man.
There's no banners, right? They never won a championship together. But yeah, the cultural legacy of that team and which will be unmatched. No college team, and I'm not saying that they mattered the most out of ever, but they were the last to be that significant, coming on the heels of the UNLV teams, coming on about the half a decade after the Georgetown teams. Obviously you go back to UCLA teams, but or even the Phi Slamma Jamma teams, but we're never going to see a college basketball team with that type of cultural imprint again, just matter that much. And so
cultural imprint.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the fact that they can gather collectively and we can celebrate them together matters. And it reminds you, the Krause booing overshadowed what really should have been the bigger story, the sadness that Michael and Scottie Pippen can't be in the same room together. You can't truly reunite those 90s Bulls, especially the only two who were playing on all 6 champions.
Right.
We can't
The
get
most
them in the
important
same room
two.
together and celebrate what they accomplished together.
Well,
Right.
Well, I don't know if you guys heard this, but I heard this a couple days ago that Michael was actually scheduled to come, and something came up that I'll tell you about offline. But that basically they tried to figure out a way to make it so that he could be there, and not that he selected the date, but that was
Right.
one of those things.
But obviously, you got to see. You got to check with him first. Sure.
Right. And for I feel like over the past couple of months, we've had reminders about monoculture, about reminders from the past that do not exist anymore. Right? You had Deion Sanders for the first few weeks of college football. Everybody stayed awake till 10 p.m. to go watch that dog shit Colorado team because we were so obsessed as a culture with prime. Like, I wasn't buying into it, but I understood how compelling it was. And then you got this whole Jordan thing, and now you got the Fab Five, a team that they lost championship games to a team coached by Dean Smith and Mike Krzyzewski.
Right.
My bad, y'all. A lot of teams lost to teams like that. And people want to brand them as losers. They beat a lot of those teams. A lot of teams
making
on the
2
way
national championship games.
They
do the same for the Bills. They do the same to the Bills. And you know what's funny, y'all? I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I was like, they made 4 straight Super Bowls. Like, you know how good you have to be in 4 straight Super Bowls.
I mean, look at the Eagles. The Eagles couldn't even come close to back, and these dudes made 4 straight.
4 straight Super Bowls. Damn, what a great team.
Speaking of NFL, Dave, it took me about 24 hours for it to hit me between the time I first read it and when I woke up this morning. Like, Bill Belichick interviewed for a job. The Falcons interviewed Bill Belichick. The notion of Bill Belichick having to go through
in black ass Atlanta. Is that what you're saying? Wait, are you saying Bill Belichick interviewing or Bill Belichick interviewing in black ass Atlanta? Which one?
Just the notion of him having to interview for a job, period. If I'm Bill Belichick, my interview response consists of I'm putting on my 6 rings and then I'm just spending the whole time tapping my fingers together like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons and just letting you look at the light.
I would have just checked the 6 Lombardis.
This is my qualifications. These 6 rings right here, big boy. What you got for me?
Exactly. What's your first question? What do you think Arthur Blank's first question to Bill was?
When can you start?
Bill, tell us about your qualifications for this.
When can you start? Like that? That's the interview question.
No, the question is how did you pull off 28-3? That's the question. that's
12 was that dude. That's why. Because 12 was that dude.
But I'm going to say something unpopular here though. Chuck Noll never coached after the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? When he was done.
Yeah.
Tom Landry never coached again after Jerry Jones fired him. We don't know. Like, if you're Bill Belichick, you don't have nothing else to prove.
No, unless you but I think he wants to coach. That's all.
He clearly wants to get past Shula, right? He wants to get the all-time wins record.
Yes. Was it 15 games?
You do have something to prove because, like, Tom Brady had nothing left to prove, but he sure went to Tampa Bay and proved something, right? Right. In the process, I don't think this was his intent or his primary motivation, but in the process, he kind of, soured the legacy of Belichick just a little bit. If you look at how their respective careers went when they split.
Absolutely, he did, because he won one without him. Yeah, he went to a nondescript Tampa Bay team and took them to a Super Bowl and won it. Absolutely, that's a big deal. Of course it is.
I look at it differently, and I know this ain't a football podcast, but I'm gonna try to show a little acumen
here. Adjacent for a reason, Vin.
Okay, there we go. I'm a Michigan fan. I know what Tom Brady looked like. When Tom Brady was in college and his first few years in New England, he was no superstar. Those first 2 Super Bowls, Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady. He became
Tom Brady, though.
You know what I mean? He threw for 125 yards. He threw for 125 yards in that first Super Bowl against the Rams. That was a defensive masterpiece. And you guys brought up the Buffalo Bills Super Bowls. Who was the defensive masterpiece in the Giants upsetting the Bills in, what was that? February of 91, right? The Whitney Houston, the flyover, all that. That was Bill Belichick.
Yeah, no question. Look, he's great. Bill Belichick's great. He
might be done, but I still think his legacy can stand alone outside of
his legacy is secured, but I'm not saying his legacy he needs to burnish that. I'm just saying, I think he wants to coach, to Jay's point. He wants to break Shula's record, and he wants to prove that he's still got it, that he's still a great coach. And that's why I will be surprised if he goes to Atlanta, because I don't know that he can win.
Can he win in Washington
immediately? No, it's not going. He wouldn't come here. That's not going to happen.
No,
it just doesn't.
You're there
because he wants a certain amount of control over personnel, and they just hired Adam Peters, so they're not. He's not getting that. So I don't.
But it's interesting, Vinny, because Landry, Noel, Shula, they didn't have that Brady type component, right? If Terry Bradshaw had gone somewhere else and won after splitting with Chuck Noll in Pittsburgh,
right,
changes it, right? If Roger Staubach goes somewhere else and wins, after parting with Landry, I think that changes it. We first of all, we never saw anything like the success of the Brady check. Brady check.
That's good.
Right? I made him a couple of Belichick Brady combination. I don't know why we never refer to them as that, but we never saw anything like the Belichick Brady combination. But this split too, in the final chapter that Brady was able to put on. It's funny. I always tell people, I tell my students to kind of look for the little moments that are telling, and I go back and I watch this sometimes. You can watch the full game replay of the Super Bowl when they beat the Chiefs, and Brady. So I think Mahomes throws like one last interception, and this is it. The Bucs are going to win this game. There's like 2 minutes left, but at this point, there's no doubt the Bucs are going to win this game, and they're getting ready to huddle, and they're gathering up. And Brady, who's about to win his 7th, looks more excited than anyone else in the huddle who was about to win the first. He starts going, yeah. He's all hyped and pumped up. And I'm like, that's why he's got 7. Because he wanted it. So it meant so much to him to win 7, more than it means to most people just to get 1.
That's why they're the great ones, the greatest ones,
maniacal,
like Jordan, to put a bow on this. That's why Jordan and Pippen and those guys, because they did. It wasn't enough for them to win.
We don't have to do that. DA.
Okay, no, I get it. I get it. Obviously, Michael was the bell cow, but Michael didn't just want to win; he wanted to destroy you.
That's illogical.
Wanted to destroy you, and so that's why he was Michael Jordan, because winning wasn't enough. Even beating you wasn't enough.
I want to say this. Did y'all get the same feeling? Because I saw Michael in like some comments that he made after Magic prematurely retired. And he said, Magic was leaving me when I needed him the most. And you know what I heard in that? I need to beat him in the finals again. I need to crush him again. Exactly. That's what it felt like he was saying.
Because at the time, I only got 2 and Magic's got 5.
No, he only had 1. He only had one.
Right. That was his first. And I need to beat him so that people put me in that category with him and Bird. Because at the time, it was Magic and Bird. One word, Magic and Bird, Magic and Bird, Magic and Bird.
And they both talked about how much they needed each other, how much they were driven by each other. They were staring across the continent, eyeing each other, and had no eyes for anyone else in the NBA. Nothing else in the NBA mattered other than this guy in Boston wanted to beat this guy in LA, and the guy in LA wanted to beat the guy in Boston.
And the guy that beat all 3 of them the most was the smallest one of all. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, he was. I'm going to leave y'all with this because we got to go. But one of my favorite things of all time, if you saw the Magic Bird HBO special, what was it, The Courtship of Rivals, whatever it was called? It's it's one of my favorites of all time because they asked Bird after they win in '84. They beat Magic in 7. They beat the Lakers in 7. They asked Bird, what did you think? What were you thinking about Magic at the time? And he went, I was so happy he lost. It was great. I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him to think about how he played bad all summer long. He didn't have a smile on his face at all. It was like
maniacal.
So my favorite part of that documentary was Magic. So they get into the duality of Magic versus Irvin, right? And the split personality that he had. And they kind of make the premise that Magic did in Irvin, Magic was the more reckless one and the one that kind of engaged in the ego, I guess, but so Magic basically got HIV. Irvin didn't get HIV, Magic got HIV, right? And so they throw this to Magic, and Magic basically says, Yeah, I can see that, but without Magic, I wouldn't have 5 championships. So it's all good. So basically, the part of you that caused you to get infected with this
Your tragic
potentially
flaw, the
fatal
thing that makes you
disease
great.
was worth it because it brought you 5 championships.
I mean,
That's how
Jordan's
pathological you have to be
incredible
to win that
hubris.
number of
Yes.
championships. You have to be
Yes.
willing to engage in potentially fatal behavior, and it's worth it to you. You don't mind because it makes you a 5-time champion.
And I look at those 91 finals and I'm like, as slow as Magic was playing, I'm like, Magic might have had HIV that entire series.
Maybe.
And was still
He will
like
never know.
19 and 12 and carrying a dog crap Lakers team to the finals
All right.
that year.
Jay, we have to stop now. But I'll just remind you, we had dinner with somebody who's in the Hall of Fame that says it'll take you to some dark places.
Be willing to go to dark places.
All right, y'all. Leave that 5-star review on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever you get this fine American podcast. Marcus isn't here, so I'll say it for him. If you can't leave 5 stars, keep it to yourself. We'll find Bulls fans to boo you for no reason.